Thank you. I'll begin. Dr. Schwinn, when President Trump nominated you, he said that, quote, "You have a strong record of delivering results for children and families and are committed to delivering the American dream to the next generation by returning education back to the states." Very quickly, because I have limited time, the President trusts your leadership and judgment. Tell me why you think he selected you to be the Deputy Secretary of Education, and be concise.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I met with the president, he said he wanted a strong, outcomes-oriented, conservative education leader who shared his vision to make the United States the #1 country in the world related to student outcomes. We talked about school choice, we talked about literacy, and we talked about how to make America the highest performing. And he looked at my track record on all of those issues, saw that we had done incredible work in Tennessee, and what I could do to take my management experience and make that real for 50 million children in this country.
Under this administration, the department has been very clear about efforts to make sure that federal funding does not support violations of federal civil rights protections, including the use of divisive race-based ideology, the promotion of leftist ideology, and undermining parental rights around abortion, sex education, and transgender issues. If confirmed, can you commit that you're aligned with President Trump's policy agenda on these issues? And please elaborate on your record at the state and local level on these issues.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. These were also issues that I discussed with the president and also with Secretary McMahon. In Tennessee, to give specific examples, under my tenure there, a number of laws and policies were passed, both by the governor and the General Assembly. We passed laws within that state looking at divisive materials and ideologies in the classroom related to instructional materials, as well as the implementation of those laws. My responsibility was to implement the laws as passed, something that I am very, very committed to, in alignment, and those laws were in alignment with President Trump's agenda and the executive orders that have been put out. My responsibility in my role as commissioner was to ensure that, one, there was strong local authority so that local communities, families, students had an opportunity to weigh in on what was appropriate for their local communities. Two, they had the opportunity to ensure that they had an appellate process so that the state was there to ensure that the law was being enforced as intended. But three, the consequences for not following the law. In Tennessee, those consequences, if you did not follow the law, were pretty severe. If you refused to do that, it was a $1 million fine on the first infraction, up to $5 million and 10% of your state funds on the fifth infraction. We took it very, very seriously in the state. That continues to be the policy, and that is because we believe very, very clearly that we need to teach the standards. We need to make sure students are reading on grade level, able to do math on grade level, and empowered to do what they want to do when they graduate from high school.
Okay. Then this next two may go to you and Ms. Ritchie, I'm sorry. According to NIH-sponsored research, almost 20% of the population is dyslexic, meaning they learn to read differently. And despite it being the most prevalent specific learning disability, students are rarely tested. Now, studies have shown that children who suffer from undiagnosed dyslexia have lifelong harm with lower career wages, reduced graduation rates, and increased rates of incarceration. As the Department of Education streamlines educational funding, how can we ensure that resources are there to identify and address an issue, specifically speaking of dyslexia?
So if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and speak specifically to that. I couldn't agree more. Addressing dyslexia at the earliest ages, especially characteristics of dyslexia, is one of the most important things we can do to ensure that our students are reading on grade level by that critical third grade measure. One of the things that we did in Tennessee was we included characteristics of dyslexia in our education formula so that it was funded as part of the special education disability categories. We increased funding for special education specifically to address that issue using existing state funding. Number two is we increased assessment to have that early indication and warning. And I think one of the things that we can do at the federal level is to support all of our states and territories with guidance on how they can empower themselves for the laws and policies that work best within their local communities. Being able to share Mississippi, Louisiana, some of the great work that's happened in Florida and Indiana, Tennessee, sharing those best practices to see how we actually grow at a faster rate on areas like characteristics of dyslexia will be incredibly important.
I'm out of time, but I may come back, Ms. Ritchie, at the end of it, after, I don't want to hold other people up. Ms. Baldwin.